Hi, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you are. Thank you for joining us today for the webinar on leveraging AI for next-gen IT and cloud operations. According to Gartner, there is no future of IT operations that does not include AI ops. Gartner is predicting that use of AI ops in monitoring applications and infrastructure will rise from 5% in 2018 to 30% in 2023. Now, why is that? Well, that's because interest and adoption of AI ops has increased exponentially as organizations are trying to enable innovation, deal with disruptors, and also manage the velocity, volume, and variety of digital data that is reaching beyond human scale. Now, IT ops is typically slow to adopt new technologies because out of necessity, their jobs have always been more conservative. After all, it's the job of IT ops to make sure that infrastructure is stable and lights stay on. However, as IT moves beyond human scale, IT tooling needs to adapt. We need big data, AI ML, and automation to deal with the new reality. We need automation-driven insights that facilitate continuous improvement and fixes. Hence today's webinar. So before we start, a few logistical items. We will have a Q&A session at the end of this presentation. We should be able to finish the presentation in about 25 minutes. After that, we will try to respond to as many questions as we can within the remaining time. Now, starting with the introductions. My name is T K Verma. I joined To The New about 2 years ago as the business unit head of US Enterprises business. Prior to joining To The New, I have been in consulting and industry roles, primarily in the financial services industry at companies like Credit Suisse, Goldman Sachs, Merrill Lynch. In these roles, I was responsible for application development, but also supporting them from application and data perspective. Manoj?
Thanks, TK. Hello all, I am Manoj Batra. I have close to 17 years of industry experience, and a significant part of my career has been focused on managed services, digital transformation initiatives. I have been helping enterprise clients set up, stabilize, and optimize their IT and cloud operations through the usage of artificial intelligence and automation tools. I'm here to share my knowledge of AI ops with you all, and I hope you find this webinar informative and get motivated to start on the AI ops journey right away for your operations.
Thank you, Manoj. So before we kick off the agenda, very quick introduction of who we are. We are a digital technology services company called To The New. We provide software development and digital transformation services to mid to large sized enterprises and software product companies across the world. We provide them with product engineering, cloud and DevOps, data engineering, and digital marketing technology services. We are about 13-year-old. We started in 2008. We have reached the strength of approximately 1,500 people at this time, with offices in US, India, and Dubai. In terms of revenue, last year we reached a revenue rate of 72 million US dollars. Two numbers that we take a lot of pride in sharing with our prospects and clients are our dollar retention rate of 115%, which means we get repeat business of about 115% from our customers year after year. We have been growing tremendously with a year-over-year growth rate of 60 to 70%. And also our attrition rate is one of the lowest in the industry. We have been able to keep it as low as 10%. Now, starting with the agenda, we're going to start with the definition of AI ops. What does it really mean? And then we're going to cover why, what, and how of AI ops, followed by a Q&A session. We're going to look at why are we looking at AI ops now? Why is it so important? And what does it do for us? And how to get started with AI implementation? What are some of the options that are available in the marketplace? So Manoj, please start with the AI ops definition.
Sure. Thanks, TK. So AI ops is the application of artificial intelligence to infrastructure or IT operations for improved stability, faster operations, and elevated customer experience. AI ops is here to replace some of the traditional operations ways of working around monitoring, incident management, and handling requests manually for their customers. How it does is exactly what we'll see in the following slides.
Great. So Manoj, the big question on everybody's mind would be that we've been talking about this for quite some time now. What has changed in recent times that companies should be focusing on this area now?
Yeah, so there are three very important factors that have changed in the past couple of years that have forced us to look at AI uh, for the operations areas. The first one is that there is more data available now for analysis and consumption. Second is the AI models and a lot of open source data analyzers and tools are readily available in the market now. And the third and the most important is that the customer expectations are much higher now than they were ever before. So when I talk about data, uh, I'm actually talking about the data that we get in operations from multiple data sources like your cloud platform logs, server logs, application logs, database logs, API logs, application transactional data, your ITSM tools, ticket data, your entire knowledge base, and so on and so forth. There is no future of IT or cloud ops that does not include AI ops. This is primarily due to the rapid growth in the data volume and the pace of change that cannot wait on humans to derive insights.
Okay, thank you, Manoj. So I think it makes sense. Data is the oxygen of AI. So now that we have access to these logs and this huge amount of data, now is the time to start applying AI. And we have the solutions available now that can get companies started very easily. And also gone are those days when IT ops used to mean supporting application between 9 to 5 or monitoring batches overnight. Systems are up 24/7, and that's what consumers expect. So it makes all the sense in the world to start considering AI ops now. So what is it that AI ops does for IT operations organizations? What's the scope of AI ops?
So as part of this webinar, we'll talk about two key streams of AI ops that we can leverage in IT and cloud operations. The first one is system reliability, which is all about making your infrastructure and IT operations more resilient and secure. The second is AI-based automation, which is about improving the accuracy and speed of your operations so that you're able to give your customers a better consumer experience and significantly reduce your operational costs. So let's talk about system reliability first. Uh, so AI ops for system reliability focuses on three key things. First, it helps detect incidents through proactive monitoring and alerting. Second, it understands where the incident is coming from and is able to assess the impact it may possibly cause. The third is that it actually helps you resolve your incident and capture the learning from it. There are four key applications of machine learning in system reliability that we will cover in detail as we go along in this section. The first one is observability. This is a very common and famous term these days. For those who have not heard this term before, Observability is the next level of traditional monitoring, which empowers you to see through each layer of your application and infrastructure to understand what is exactly slow or broken. Right? And then it also helps you quickly understand what needs to be done to improve the performance of the system. So with AI ops, IT teams can actually leverage supervised machine learning algorithms related to regression, classification, correlation to analyze and contextualize large volumes of data, right? We're talking about multiple sources of data and then large volumes of that, right? To provide a single pane of glass, which will let you see deep into the health of your IT infrastructure. I'll take an example. Imagine you have a production outage on an e-commerce or a banking website, right? You don't know where the problem lies. Which layer has a problem? Is it the front end? Is it the API? Is the problem at a database level? Or is it actually a third party that has gone down? And this is where these AI ops based observability tools will help you nail it much faster than a human can possibly can, and then help you significantly improve your mean time to repair and your overall service level objectives, which are the key matrices when we come to measuring the efficiency of your operations. The second leg that we want to talk about today is anomaly detection. Right? So again, taking an example, you deployed a new build last week which had an issue, right? But your application is working perfectly fine, so your QA team or your automated QA tools won't be able to catch it. Would you want to know about these things proactively or after the outage has happened, which could not happen immediately, right? It may happen after a week. This is where AI-based log analyzers, they use supervised learning algorithms to classify logs and find out whether the logs are being newly generated, right? Or were they pre-existing? The errors that they were throwing were pre-existing, or is there an anomaly that has recently been introduced, right? So AI tools will help you identify existing or potential problems before they convert into incidents. It will help you spot anomalies in the system, and it will also help you do incident correlation across different failures to pinpoint where the root cause is, which will in turn help you resolve things faster. Coming to the third leg is around self-healing. Again, let's start with an example. One of your critical services go down, an alert gets generated in say 2 to 3 minutes. Your 24/7 monitoring team comes in, acknowledges it in 15 minutes. They log into the server, restart it. 30 minutes are already gone, right? A single hour of IT downtime results in a productivity loss of $100,000 for more than 95% of businesses today. And this is where self-healing plays a significant role. It helps you bring down the downtime to under 5 minutes. The infra or the applications are able to recover themselves, and then the team can come in later and do the RCs, right? So AI-based self-healing platforms can identify factors that may impact system performance, and then also take necessary action to prevent or fix the problem before it becomes too large and starts causing system disruption. The last, but probably the most important these days, is how AI has a role to play in security. Uh, so AI ops helps in proactive identification and prevention of security breaches and hacks. The key here is speed, right? Even humans can do that, right? But the key is, can you really afford a hack to continue for 15 minutes before a human is able to stop it, right? So the key is the speed at which a machine is able to identify and block a breach versus how fast humans are able to do the same. Machine learning based models help you detect malicious activity and stop these attacks before they get started. Threats are identified and mitigated without causing any damage to the organization's reputation. And this is where it plays a large role when it comes to system reliability. Let's talk about the other side of AI ops now, which is automation. I've tried to cover two parts of automation here. Uh, the first one of that is smart chatbots. So a smart chatbot uh, will help you automate your consumer interaction, right? So it will follow a very systematic way to solve the service requests coming to your help desk team. Uh, in the first attempt, a smart chatbot will help to solve the problem, right? So it will understand the customer request and attempt to solve it right away, right? And a significant portion of your requests can be solved using these smart chatbots. If it is unable to solve the problem, it guides, right? Right. When I say guide, what I mean is that it is able to browse through your knowledge base, which you have built over the past few years, to find the right articles, content, standard operating procedures, and give it to the customer to try out, right? And if those can solve it for them, right? In the worst case, where the problem is still not solved, the least it can do is raise a ticket on the customer behalf, uh, which the backend IT team can look at instead of the customer having to fill up a long form on an ITSM tool. You can actually take uh, these smart chatbots to the next level by implementing feedback loop, right? So the way it works is that you collate all your customer input, the way they were resolved by your IT team, right? And then feed them back to the smart chatbot machine learning algorithm, right? So these smart chatbots keep on getting smarter every day, right? And are able to solve a higher percentage of issues than they earlier were able to, right? So that's the beauty of feedback loop in smart chatbots. The other side of automation, where AI has a lot of application, is RPA, robotics process automation. So ro robotic process automation essentially lets you automate repeatable things that your IT team does on a day-to-day basis. Uh, I've listed some examples there. They can do user account management for you, whether it is about creating new accounts, deleting accounts, updating the permission of your customers and users, resetting the passwords, and then use cases around data handling, be it data imports, migration, cleanups, use cases around server maintenance, uh, incident prevention and management. We spoke about how some of these tools can actually help you uh, self-heal your infrastructure, and then it is also able to integrate with your application sanity suites, whether uh, which are automated, right? It could be Selenium, JMeter, or any load runner or any other tool, right? These RP tools integrate with the or application sanity tools and do these for you in an unmanned manner, right? The initial generation of RPA tools, they needed to be programmed, right? However, these advanced self-learning bots, they learn themselves from log data and screen capture videos, and then are able to perform the actions that humans do. Then there are, if I would like to take it to the next level, right? There are intelligent cognitive automation bots that have image recognition capabilities and natural language processing capabilities that are able to understand even the unstructured data that you feed to them. So that's the key uh,
Manoj,
on the automation side.
no, sorry to interrupt. Yeah, move the slide to RPA also. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay. So, all right. So AI ops can do a lot for us, right? It can help us with our system reliability engineering initiatives, which include security, right? That's a very integral part of system reliability, but also help us reduce manual steps by automating using smart chatbots and RPA tools, right? That's so. Given that now is the time to think about AI ops, given so much that AI ops can do for us, the question is, how can a company that is experimenting with it or just getting started with the concept, where do they start? What do they do?
Mhm. That's a nice segue into our next section of how. Right. So let's talk about again. Our conversation will be mostly around two key legs. One is around how do we use AI for system stability, and second will be how do we use AI for automation. Right? So, so if you were to get started with it, the first and most important thing is uh, your system should be emitting proper logs, traces, and matrices that a machine learning model can consume. Right? These logs could be again any cloud logs, database logs, application logs, and so on and so forth. Right? Then probably you would go and evaluate a few log analysis tools, and I'll talk about some of them in as we go along, and see what exactly works for your needs and budgets. Right? Or you could choose to write your own AI models. And in the end, you could choose a good presentation tool that gives you really clean visualization and dashboarding, so that you can see how your system is performing in overall, right? So if you have a very strong DevOps team already in place, you may choose to pick up any open source tool and let the team set it up. If you do not want to invest time and money in setting up these tools, right, you may, and you have the budget, you can pick up one of the enterprise tools like Splunk, New Relic, or Datadog. Right? All of these platforms are available as a SaaS model, so that you don't have end up paying a lot. I'll briefly describe some of these tools. New Relic is great for application performance monitoring, right? So it lets you see performance from an end user perspective, uh, through the servers and down to the level of each line of code. Right? Uh, Splunk is pretty neat, and it gives you insights in the log analysis, security, event management space by analyzing the logs and the machine data that is getting generated on the servers and from your application. Right? Datadog is pretty good when it comes to infrastructure monitoring. On the open source and free tools, uh, the most popular tool is Elastic, right? The ELK stack. So it has three parts to it. One is Elasticsearch, which is DB optimized for search. Uh, Logstash, it is a log forwarder. And then you have Kibana, which is essentially the UI where you can create some pretty cool and sophisticated dashboards. Greylog is an alternative. It addresses some of the drawbacks of the ELK stack, like housekeeping and all, right? But you can also choose to combine Greylog and ELK so that you get the best of both worlds. Uh, Grafana is a visualization software. It helps you understand complex data. And then Prometheus is a monitoring and alerting tool at your end. Most of these tools have machine learning models built into them, so you don't have to worry about writing machine learning models, right? You can pick them off the shelf and have your DevOps team implement them, or if you're yourself tech savvy, you can experiment with a couple of them. There are plenty of material available on each of these tools, so you can get started with very less effort. uh, let's jump to the other side of automation, right? How do we leverage AI tools for automation? Uh, so we'll first talk about RPA. So you have to start with identifying what is your most common use cases, service requests that have a very defined standard operating procedure, uh, and comes to your IT team very frequently, right? That is the use case to solve, right? Because that is what will take away most of your pain. So you could leverage an RPA developer to do a POC, right, on the most important automation use case that you have, right? For RPA, again, you have enterprise tools and free editions. So you have Automation Anywhere, that is really known for its ease of use and low complexity in trying to build a bot. Blue Prisms has a really rich design studio. It it really makes it very intuitive to implement any RPA use cases. Right, on UiPath has a community edition that is free, so you could consider using that if you are just experimenting around. So it has a very simple low code user interface, right? So it is relevant for people who have never worked on RPA before. On the smart chatbot side, right, if your customer experience is really important, leverage a smart chatbot. It will field most of the common questions and requests, and only send limited set of requests to your backend IT team. Again, here also you can choose to pick up a ready-made NLP framework off the shelf, or you could choose to uh, pick up machine learning models and write your own smart chatbots. Uh, in terms of what is available off the shelf in the market, we have uh, Amazon Lex, which is pretty good for building conversational voice and text interfaces because it uses the same deep learning technology that Alexa uses. Right? The only disadvantage is that it supports only English right now. On the Azure side, the Azure Bot Framework is very famous for providing multilingual platform support, right? And it is serverless, right? So it scales on demand. So the moment even if your customer scale is fluctuating, it works pretty cleanly, right? Because it is able to handle uh, the scale, right? And it also provides multiple language support. Google also has a similar tool. They call it Dialogflow. It supports 20 plus languages, so it is definitely the preferred option for non-English customers. Right? Uh, Chatterbot is also a paid tool, but it definitely scores the maximum when it comes to ease of use. Right? How do you easily get started with it? Right? Chatterbot definitely scores there. Uh, there are similar smart chatbot tools available on the open source and free side. Uh, there is bit.ai, which is a little hard for non-technical people if you've never worked in this area before, but it is definitely free for both personal and commercial use. BotPress is there, which is very relevant for commerce and financial services. It has both free and enterprise options. Uh, BotKit is again free. It has a BotKit Studio, and it really works great with NLP integrations. So just pick up the tool that works best for you, basis of what I described, and start doing a few POCs, and you will be able to move ahead with it pretty fast.
Got it. So there are plenty of tools available in the marketplace, and you don't have to start from scratch. A lot of these tools come with built-in machine learning models.
Mm-hmm.
So what would you say could be the hello world of AI ops? Someone just wants to start with something very simple.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the easiest use case to implement on the automation side is RPA, right? It is very similar to some of the old long-term industry tools like Selenium and all, which actually just record what you are doing and then they start doing things, right? So you can literally pick and drop components from the studio and implement an RPA use case. On the system stability side, also the hello world probably a log analyzer. So if you have plenty of logs already available, pick up an open source log analyzer tool like in Graylog or uh, one of the ELK stack and see how it works for you. So that is what I would recommend.
Okay, great. All right, thank you, Manoj. Thanks for the presentation. Let's start the Q&A. And thanks to those attendees who have been posting their questions on the panel. I'm going to take questions in no particular order, Manoj. The first question I'm taking here is, which cloud platform should I use to implement AI ops?
Yeah, I think the first thing that I would like to say there is that separate out your implementation partner. It could be a data center, it could be a cloud platform. So keep your infrastructure whatever, you could use any infrastructure provider to host your infrastructure, and then you can choose any cloud platform to implement an AI ops use case, right? So you can keep both those two completely separate, right? So you don't have to match them, right? Uh, Now coming back to your question, AWS has the deepest set of AI services, right? Because it has been in the industry for the longest period of time. Users can choose from pre-trained models related to computer vision, language, recommendations, and forecasting to quickly build, train, and deploy machine learning models, right, at scale. Right? AWS also has very industry and use case specific solutions, ready-made solutions, right, around fraud detection, code reviews, right. Code Guru can do code reviews for you. Then you have Transcribe that helps you in speech to text conversion. You have Lex, we spoke about. It's a smart chat bot. You have Poly, it's for text to speech conversion. And then you also have Comprehend, which is again for natural language processing. Uh, on the Google Cloud side, again, it is very rich. It is catching up very fast. It has AI platform notebooks. It lets you create training jobs. You have Kubeflow, AutoML, AI Hub. It lets you build pipelines using Kubeflow, right? And it just helps you fast track a lot of your AI implementations, which include consuming data from multiple sources and then giving it to the models to implement. Azure again is pretty rich. It has cognitive search, it has Onyx, it has a natural language stack, along with other AI services around computer vision, language, and speech. Right. So all three of them are pretty strong. They see the need in the market, and they are quickly coming up with tools to implement to help people adopt these AI use cases at a very fast pace.
Got it. So your workload may be running at the data center or one of the cloud platforms, but you're not tied with any particular platform. You could use AWS or Azure or even GCP and use AI ops services from there against your workload. That's good.
Yeah.
All right, Manoj, next question is, when is AI not the path to go for the ops teams? So the way I'm interpreting this question is that you talked about what AI ops cover. Are there any areas where AI ops is not ready yet?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So uh, again, we have spoken a lot about AI ops there, TK. It But there are some scenarios where AI ops will not be able to help you, right? The uh, the first thing to understand is that implement any machine learning algorithm that you try to build, or any open source tool or enterprise tool that you pick from the market, it feeds on data. So if you do not have enough data to feed, do not go with implementing any of the AI ops or machine learning use cases. Uh, the second case where I can think AI is not useful is that if your application is changing too frequently, right? So these machine learning models, they take time to train themselves. Uh, they learn over a period of time, they refine themselves. But if your application is changing too frequently, they can get confused as fast, right? So if your application is changing frequently, again, not recommended. Let your application stabilize a bit and then try out a machine learning use case. Uh, the third is if you're talking about automation, if each of the requests coming into your IT team is different, if there are not enough repeatable requests coming in, then you will not be able to get value out of any automation that you do. Right. So that is where I would not recommend implementing automation. Right. So these are the three things that came to my mind when you spoke about when AI is not the path to go.
So unlike other areas where AI is more mature and is adaptable to changing conditions, in the case of IT ops, AI still requires processes to be consistent and repeatable. And of course,
Yeah.
data is a big requirement for any AI initiative. Got it. All right, next one, Manoj, I'm taking here is, do I need a team of data scientists to create AI models for my need?
Yeah, I think I've briefly spoken about there are tons and tons of open source tools and these cloud platforms that have come up and made life easy for us. Uh, Implementing any AI use case has been never easier than it is today. Right? There are ready-made AI models available on all cloud platforms or otherwise that cater to most of the simple use cases that the IT ops industry has. Uh, in fact, some of these uh, models and use cases, as I was talking about, right, they are very industry specific and they solve very specific problems of the industry. Uh, so uh, again, if you are starting off with an AI implementation uh, and you are tech savvy, you could start yourself, or you could start with probably a small team of one data engineer and one data scientist, uh, and try to solve a couple of use cases, see how they go along, what return you are getting, and then think about expanding the team if you see value coming in. Right? If you are trying to solve a very complex use case using computer vision, image recognition, right, to identify scenarios uh, that that need to learn over a period of time, that we need deep learning capabilities, then you would definitely need a team of data scientists and engineers to work together and stitch an automated system, right? So probably use cases like fraud detection in banking industry or in e-commerce industry, right? Those kind of you if you're trying to solve that kind of complex use cases, you definitely would need a team of data scientists and data engineers to pull that off accurately.
Got it. All right, next question, Manoj, I'm taking here is, you've talked a lot about how AI is being used to automate ops across verticals. Would want to know something about how exactly To The New is using AI in a particular domain. Maybe some of the examples where we have been able to apply AI ops for our customers.
Yeah, so I'll share a couple of pretty easy use cases, right? One is that uh, observability is like almost kind of expected now in the industry, right? So you have to have if you are providing cloud operation support to your clients, uh, right? There isn't value if you have not implemented observability and you have not implemented one of these ELK stacks or any other enterprise level tools like New Relic and Splunk uh, to help your clients get ahead of the incidents, right? So that is one use case that we do for all our clients, right? The second use case probably that I can think of is, which is very common, is fielding the requests, right, and routing them to the right team, right? So you could what we tried doing was that we submitted like a lakh half a million requests to a machine learning algorithm to actually let that machine learning algorithm learn as to where that specific request should be routed to, right? So that your L1 team doesn't have to go through each ticket and then route them to the right team who can solve it. So we tried automating that, and surprisingly, the machine learning algorithm was almost like was able to route those tickets accurately in 90% of the use cases. So uh, these are a couple of examples which are like quick wins that you can think of implementing in your operations to just taste success really fast, right? And we do that for a lot of our clients.
Great, thank you, Manoj. All right, next one is AI ops implementation a long and time-consuming process?
Uh, Not really. I think that that's a myth in the industry. It is most of the use cases, most of the common use cases, it is not a long and time-consuming process. In fact, the easiest use cases, like I spoke about, the log analysis tools or uh, building smart chatbots, right? These you can actually uh, go live with them in a matter of couple of weeks, right? So you don't. But yeah, it also depends on what problem you are trying to solve. If you're trying to solve a really complex use case, then I would first want to understand what data you have around that area, right? If you do not have the right data, then we would first have to touch the applications uh, and make sure that they are emitting the right data. The servers, the databases are emitting the right data that a machine learning model can consume, right? And these are steps for some complex implementations that I'm talking about, right? Then they would be submitted to a machine learning model, which would take its own time to train itself. You would refine that model, right? And then it would start giving you meaningful data, right? So uh, just if I were to summarize all of this, if the data to be fed to the model is already available and your use case is simple, you can actually go live in a matter of a week or two with your initial use cases, right? If you're trying to solve a really complex use case like a banking or an e-commerce fraud, right, it may take you months to create a baseline machine learning model, right? And then even more months to uh, right retrain it by submitting more data, make sure that you fine tune the model before it actually starts giving you uh, some accurate results with uh, some confidence, right? So it depends on your use case, but what I would say is most of the use cases are standard across industry and they can be taken live in a matter of a couple of weeks.
Got it. So if you have all the prerequisites met, conditions are
Mm-hmm.
ideal, which was very unlikely, you can get it up and running within a matter of a week or two.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. Next one is AI relevant for small and medium-sized companies?
Uh, Definitely, right? In fact, small and medium-sized companies can adopt these AI and ML use cases in much easier way than it takes large enterprises to adopt them, right? So courtesy these large cloud providers and open source ML platforms, uh, AI use cases can be implemented really fast by these small businesses, right? Um, I would recommend that they, when they are thinking about development, at that time itself they should start thinking about machine learning use cases and which of those use cases, which of the things that they are trying to build can actually leverage machine learning and AI tools to develop in parallel, right? So run a AI or machine learning track in parallel to your development track, because that is when you will reap the maximum benefit. Uh, the larger you become, it becomes with if you're a large enterprise, what it means is that you are already sitting on probably 10 plus years, some systems that are 10 years old, 5 years old. You will then, in that cases, probably you will have to start with one specific system, make sure that the application is emitting enough logs, right, and then submit it to the ML tools to see how the results start to come along, right? So everybody, it is relevant for everybody, but it is easier for small and medium enterprises to implement some of these use cases, uh, right? And but for large enterprises, it takes a little bit more time.
Got it. So in the interest of time, I'm going to stop here. Manoj, thank you for sharing the wealth of information. And thanks to all the attendees who took time to post the questions. That was really helpful. Anyone who attended, we're going to share this deck with you. But if you have any questions that were on your mind, you didn't get time to ask, please note down our contact information, and you will see it in the email anyway. And send us the questions. We will surely respond to them offline via email. And with that, we're going to end the call. once again, thanks everyone for attending. Hopefully, with what Manoj shared with us today was helpful on understanding and getting started with this top trending topic in the field of IT ops. Thank you and enjoy the rest of the day.
Thank you.